What if you could get real-time feedback while you meditate? That's possible, and it's incredibly powerful for helping you to stay focused while you train your brain to be more productive. This is the 5 a.m. Miracle, episode number 373, Meditation and Productivity with Ariel Garten. Good morning, I am Jeff Sanders, and this is the podcast dedicated to dominating your day before breakfast. My guest today is a neuroscientist, innovator, and entrepreneur. She is a co-founder of Interazon, the makers of Muse, the brain-sensing headband. Muse is the award-winning wearable technology that assists and trains meditation and mindfulness. And now here is my interview with Ariel Garten.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So I want to begin this conversation with your background in meditation. This is a topic that I love to talk about, and as I was just telling you before we hit the record button, that I am not great at meditating on a consistent basis. So I'd love to hear for you, like, when did this, healthy habit appear on your radar as something that you saw as a valuable practice?
So I was a former psychotherapist in private practice, and I was trained as a neuroscientist. And so in both of those different domains, meditation became very big. In neuroscience, there were hundreds of papers coming out demonstrating the impact that meditation really makes in your brain and in your life. And as a psychotherapist, I was being trained to use meditation for anybody with anxiety, depression, basically most things that came in through the door, you'd at least teach meditation as a baseline. But as a therapist, I myself sucked at meditating. I had a ton of ideas. I was also an entrepreneur. I was always doing a million things, and the idea of making my mind, go quiet for a period of time or just sitting with my thoughts was actually kind of terrifying. And so I'd be teaching my patients to meditate, and I wouldn't be doing it myself. And it wasn't until I started building Muse, actually building a tool to help meditation, that I finally got meditation. I finally got what it was to be in focused attention, to stay with my breath. And then all of a sudden, the value of this practice stayed with me. And so for the last very many years now, I've been a consistent meditator, and the changes it has made in my life are dramatic.
So I'm curious in terms of how you view meditation, because one aspect of meditation that I've seen consistently is that it's not always viewed in the same way. So how do you kind of define what it means to meditate?
So meditation is the practice or training that you do regularly, and meditation can build the skill of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the moment-to-moment awareness of your thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, and environment. So as you train, sitting on your mat in the morning, doing your meditation, that is building the skill of mindfulness, being able to go throughout the world and be mindful, aware in the present moment of your experience.
Okay. I think that clarifies it a lot. I like the idea of meditation being a simple practice. I like the idea that it's not something that I have to do it in a specific way. I think to that degree, how do you actually go about meditating? Because I know that there are a variety of there are mantras or ways to things to think about, things to not think about. How do you actually practice meditation?
So the simplest form of meditation that most people learn at the beginning is a focused attention meditation. And in focused attention, what you do is you put your attention on just one thing, and it can be a mantra or your breath or a candle. And as soon as your mind wanders away from that one thing, you notice that your mind has wandered, and you choose to then bring your attention back to the thing. So with Muse, we teach you a simple focused attention on the breath practice. So you put your attention on the breath, you're noticing your breath, you're in the present moment with your breath. Eventually your mind wanders into a thought like, that grocery list, I should have done that today. You then notice, oh, right, I'm not meditating anymore, I'm thinking. You let go of the thought, you come back to your breath. So this is an incredibly simple practice. But when you do this simple practice, some really profound things can happen. When your mind wanders onto a thought and you choose, instead of following it, to come back to your breath, you in that moment fundamentally change the relationship to your thinking. Most of us just go through the world on autopilot. We go through the world with thoughts floating around our head, and we presume they're supposed to be there, and they're thoughts of, this is going to happen, and I'm not good enough, and that worry, and that's just what's in our mind. When you do a focused attention meditation and you choose to take your mind off your wandering thoughts and choose to put it on something neutral, you've fundamentally shifted the relationship with your thinking. And you no longer need to spend time in those negative, repetitive, wandering thoughts. You can choose where your brain goes.
So the idea of choosing neutral is interesting because I've heard before this concept that, like positive thinking, or this idea that we're going to shift our minds to only think about things that are positive. Can you use meditation in that sense of saying, as opposed to a wandering mind, or possibly having negative thoughts and going back to neutral, could you just, I guess, choose to go to a positive direction? Is there a difference in how that plays out?
Absolutely, you can do that. The first skill that you're learning is the skill of moving your mind away from something. So you're learning that you have control over your own mental space. You're learning that you don't have to be lost inside of a thought. You can actually just observe that you're thinking and then make a choice about your thinking. And then where you want to put your mind is all up to you. People typically put their mind on the breath when they learn the practice, because the breath is here, it's with you, it's in the present moment. And as you're breathing deeply, it also serves to relax your body. So you're having both the effect of calming your mind and taking deep breaths, which is going to relax your body, slow your heartbeat, dilate your blood vessels, bring your immune system back on, do all those good things. When you're doing something like a mantra practice, you might put your mind on a phrase. So maybe the phrase is, today's going to be a great day. And every time your mind wanders off to something, you just keep it on the phrase, today's going to be a great day, today's going to be a great day, or I am great, or I love myself. Where you put your attention is your choice, which is part of the beauty of meditation, that you finally have choice over where you put your attention.
Do you find yourself, I guess, meditating kind of on accident throughout the day in that sense, that you train your brain to shift so often and so regularly that just becomes, I guess, how your brain functions then going forward?
Totally. That's what you're going for. Just like when you go to the gym and you do your bench presses, all of a sudden you're strong. And as you go throughout the day, you can lift your groceries and move a couch and pick up your kid and you don't even notice. And it just feels great. Meditation does just that. So as you move throughout your day, you're now able to notice when you're in a mindless, ruminating, stressful, useless thought. You can say, hey, I don't need to be there. You can shift your attention to the thing in front of you, like the person you're talking to, the day that you're looking at, the garden in front of you. And so mindfulness brings this incredible joy because it trains you to be in the present moment. It trains you to be in the here and now, which, as it turns out, study after study demonstrates, actually makes you happier.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think most of us might spend our times either regretting the past or being stressed about the future, and those kinds of things, I guess, don't play well in our brains. Which is kind of my next question about meditation. As someone who has studied this, what is actually happening in our brains when we meditate? I've heard before that we can, change the structure of our brains, but what does that practically mean for someone who, wants to start this practice? You want maybe a healthier brain, you want to maybe think more clearly. What's taking place there?
So meditation makes real change in your brain. It is totally amazing. So at the front of your brain, you have a structure called the prefrontal cortex. And what your prefrontal cortex does is it's responsible for our higher order processing, our planning, our organization, our attention, our inhibition. All of that is the domain of the prefrontal cortex. When you have a long-term meditation practice, you are actually strengthening your prefrontal cortex. In a study by Dr. Sarah Lazar at Harvard, she demonstrated that long-term meditators actually had thicker prefrontal cortices than people who had not meditated. And as you age, your prefrontal cortex actually thins. So doing a practice that can help you maintain the thickness of your prefrontal cortex is actually key to helping you in healthy brain aging. So there's this cool relationship between the prefrontal cortex, which you're strengthening through meditation, and the amygdala. The amygdala is the part of your brain that's responsible for fight or flight. It is the thing that is always scanning for danger and creating all of those worried thoughts in your head. The, oh no, this is going to go wrong. Oh no, that went wrong before. This is going to keep going wrong. It's the oh no button. And it's really useful when it's there to protect us from real dangers that are actually in front of us or before us. It's not really useful when it's spending its time worrying that somebody's not going to like us and thinking that we have a wrinkle in our pants and, thinking the same worried thought over and over and over again. And actually, it's its job to just present the same information over and over and over again to make sure you pay attention to it. And frankly, when you're stuck in traffic and you're stuck in traffic and your amygdala over and over and again is telling you, you're stuck in traffic, you're going to be late, it's really not helpful. So what we see in a long-term meditation practice is a decrease in the activity in the amygdala. And even in long-term meditators, you can see a decrease in the size of the amygdala. And there's a relationship between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. It's kind of like the prefrontal cortex is the parent and the amygdala is the child. So any of you with kids know that your kids will, come in and they'll be afraid of the monster under the bed or the shadow on the wall. And they'll be freaking out and crying, Mommy, I can't go to the bathroom. There's a shadow under the wall. I'm scared. And you as the parent will come in and turn on the light and show them that there's nothing there. So it's basically what your prefrontal cortex does for your amygdala. Every time your amygdala is really worried about something that's not actually such a big problem, your prefrontal cortex steps in and says, it's okay, amygdala. I can see, I can look around, I can make, discernment and tell you that everything is fine. And in a long-term meditation practice, that brain dynamic is actually improved. And what you see is increased projections between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, so that the prefrontal cortex is actually more effectively able to calm or downregulate the amygdala. It's super cool.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. It's kind of amazing that what we do in terms of how we think or how we practice, literally changes our brains. I find that just so fascinating that that's even possible. You mentioned before this idea of specific, breathing practices or ways to breathe when we meditate. Have you seen, is there a difference in how we should breathe in order to optimize this process? I mean, obviously a lot of people meditate might slow their breath and that's kind of the focus, but is that what we're going for?
Sure. So there are two different approaches. Actually, there are multiple different approaches to breath and meditation. In some meditation practices, you're simply observing the breath. You're not changing it. Because another skill that meditation teaches you is to accept what is, to be with what is and to just ride it through and go with it. So that's a cool little lesson that you learn from meditation that's very helpful in life and in entrepreneurship. Another form of breathing practice that you can do is one in which you're extending your exhales and taking deep breaths. And doing this can deeply and profoundly relax the body. So the relaxation system in your body is governed by your vagus nerve. And your vagus nerve runs from brain, down your neck, down your heart, and into your stomach. And when you take a deep breath, you're actually triggering your vagus nerve to let it know it's cool, it can relax now. And so you're triggering all the things in your body that are associated with relaxation. And that's a slowing of your heartbeat, decreasing of your blood pressure, a dilating of your blood vessels, so you have more blood moving around and more oxygen moving around your body. So it becomes this very healthy state to just take long, slow, deep breaths from your belly.
Yeah, I think when I think of meditation, I think of a very relaxing practice, something that's designed to basically de-stress me, which is kind of my next question. I know that a lot of people will use a practice like this for, tackling things like fear or anxiety. Is there a relationship between someone who meditates a lot and someone who can, over time be less stressed? Do those things come hand in hand? Or is there another way to focus on meditation to create a less stressful life?
So the meditation practice that I described leads to a less stressful life. That's the road. And so if you remember, I described when your mind is wandering, you can then notice that you have a wandering thought and choose to take your brain elsewhere. So a lot of the times what our brain wanders into are thoughts that are stressful. Stress exists in the body, but it often starts in the mind. And so you'll have a stressful thought and then you'll feel, heightened sensation in your body, like stress in your body. And then your brain interprets that and you have more stressful thoughts and it just ramps forward. With meditation, we intervene both at the level of the thought and at the level of the body. So you can now identify my brain's going somewhere, don't need it to go there, don't need it to wander down that path that is not useful and causes me stress. Back to my breath, back to something neutral. So not being in stressful thoughts decreases your stress dramatically. And then you're breathing deeply and relaxing your body. So you're taking your body out of the fight or flight stress response. And so it's becoming calm. So your thoughts are calm, your body is calm. It's very calming. And if you remember, I talked about the amygdala. That's the part of your body that's scanning for danger. That's actually the part of your brain that is most responsible for stress. That is the part of your brain that like initiates the whole stress response. And in long-term meditators, we see a down regulation, a less activation of the amygdala, and even a decrease in the size of the amygdala. So yes, meditation is a straight line to stress relief.
That's great to hear. That's what I wanted to hear. Also, along those same lines, I mean, this podcast has a big focus on productivity. I love the idea that I can, structure my day to get more stuff done. And one of those kind of core components is having healthy habits, to boost my health, my energy, so I can get more stuff done. How do you view meditation in terms of that lens of wanting to have like a high achiever's lifestyle, but also having those like intentional downtimes to take care of yourself? Because I feel like there's a relationship there between, I guess, being cognizant of our health, but also being aware that we want to get things done today. Like, how do you view that? And I guess the other angle too is people who say they're too busy to meditate. Like, how does that play in as well?
Okay, so meditation is like one of the best productivity tools ever made. It is your secret weapon for productivity. So remember I described you're focused on something that you care about, and we talked about it as your breath, but actually it could be the document you're working on. And your mind wanders to Facebook and to donuts and to, oh, right, I'm supposed to be working. So every time your mind wanders away, that's actually like a micro procrastination. You may not actually get up and go to the fridge or open Facebook, but that time that your brain has spent going on a little vacation there to Facebook land in your own brain, not helpful, not useful, and not productive. So what meditation allows you to do is to identify very quickly every one of those distractions. As soon as your mind wanders away, you're like, oh, right, mind wandered away. Nope, supposed to be working. Mind wandered away, supposed to be working. And over time, what you discover is that your mind wanders away from your task a lot less. And you're really able to just focus on your task and go deep into it. And that's really one of the first skills that Muse teaches you. So what Muse does is it gives you real-time feedback during your meditation to let you know when your mind is wandering, to cue you that your mind has wandered, and then to encourage you to come back to the object of your attention. So you're wearing your Muse headset. As soon as your mind wanders away from your breath, you hear sounds, and that's your cue to be like, right, mind wandering, back to my breath. And that trains you very, very precisely to notice all of your mind wanderings and to very quickly get yourself back on track, and can save you so much time and productivity. It's actually one of the biggest things that I noticed when I started my practice deeply.
Yeah, let's dig into Muse a little bit more. I mean, for listeners here who haven't heard more about that, like what exactly, how does this work? It's a headset, but it's tracking your brain in some way. So can you explain kind of the science behind this device and how it operates?
So Muse is kind of like a Fitbit for your meditation. So a Fitbit sits on your wrist to track your steps. Muse is a slim little band that sits on your forehead and it tracks your meditation. There are EEG sensors on it and a heart rate sensor. And it's able to track when you're focused and when your mind is wandering. And the metaphor we use is your mind is like the weather. So it actually translates your brain activity into guiding sounds. When you're thinking or distracted or mind wandering, you hear it as stormy. And as you come to quiet, focused attention on the thing in front of you, it quiets the sounds. So it's really training you when the meditation zone and when your mind is wandering. So, we all know that meditation is incredibly good for you, but for most people, the act of meditating is still kind of strange. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? There's no little coach or guru sitting inside of your head saying, yep, that's right, you're doing it. And so that's why we built Muse, because we recognize that with this EEG technology, we could actually very easily give you feedback on your meditation, tell you when you were doing it right, and really show you how to start and build your practice and really be able to enhance the practice and actually make it more productive.
Is this the kind of device that someone could use who has never done this before? Like someone who doesn't meditate very often, you get the device. Is it going to help you kind of, I guess, solidify that practice? In my mind, I'm thinking if I had a device to put on, it would kind of remind me to meditate more often and get me in that practice. Is that kind of part of that routine as well?
Totally. And so now there's like at least 500,000 people who use Muse regularly in their life. Many of them had never meditated before. They got a Muse and they're like, oh, right, now I know how to meditate. Some of them have tried to meditate and were frustrated and they're like, oh, now that I have a Muse, I finally know how to meditate. And then we also have expert meditators that use it to get deeper into their practice. And we're also used in clinics. The Mayo Clinic uses us in any situation where a therapist like me would have said, hey, you should go meditate. And now they can just hand their patient a Muse and they will just go off and meditate. So it's really, really effective to get your practice started and to keep your practice going, because meditation is amazing, but like going to the gym, you want to be doing it regularly. So Muse actually tracks your progress, shows you your improvements, shows you what your brain was doing, and really creates a whole motivational architecture for you to really stay on the practice bandwagon.
So in terms of the practice of meditation, is there a certain like time of day or length of time you should meditate, or are there certain ways that you've seen over time that are most effective?
Everybody wants to know that question. So the most popular times that people use Muse are 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. When we asked our users, tell us about your experience, people love to use it in the morning to get themselves ready to go for the day. Actually, 6 a.m. is our second most popular time. And then other people love to use it in the evening to help them fall asleep. In terms of when you should meditate, it's really up to you. There is no best time according to studies. There have been studies looking at the time of day. It really doesn't seem to matter. So the time of day is the time that you are actually going to do it. And that might be in the morning before your kids are up. It might be in the evening after they're asleep. It might be, at 2 p.m. during your work coffee break. It's whenever it fits into your own life.
And in terms of length of time, is there an ideal amount there?
So in the traditional studies looking at meditation, they tend to look at 20 minutes a day. In the studies that we've done with Muse, we look at 10 minutes per day of meditation and see significant impact. There have been over 200 studies published with Muse, and they tend to say that around 10 minutes a day can show improvements in your cognitive function, improvements in your Stroop task. So that's a psychological task that demonstrates the efficiency of your processing. Improvements in self-reported symptoms like headache and pain and nausea. So 10 minutes a day seems to be a pretty good sweet spot.
And I'm assuming this is the kind of thing where if you do this regularly, you'll see better benefits as opposed to like postponing it and doing like an hour for one time a week. Is this the kind of like a daily habit that's better long-term like that?
Yes, you want to get into the habit of doing it daily. There's nothing wrong with doing it for an hour once a week. But like most things, you want to build up to it. So, just like when you go to the gym, you probably wouldn't absolutely go as hard as you could the very first time. And so as a beginner, you can really begin at just 5 minutes a day. And each day, simply 5 minutes a day, starting the practice, understanding it, starting to apply it, you will see benefits pretty quickly.
Now, you mentioned sleep earlier. I know that's one topic you're also really passionate about. So let's shift to that. What do you want to share with us about sleep? Because that's a really important topic, obviously, if people want to wake up early and get things done. So what's going on there?
We love sleep. So we noticed that people were actually using their Muse to help them fall asleep. And so we built this brand new device called Muse S that has these amazing, they're called guided journeys that help you fall asleep with a soundtrack that's built from your body, and tracking that actually tracks your sleep through the night as precisely as a sleep lab. It's super cool. And what we've been discovering about sleep is that most people do not go to sleep early enough. So if you're super excited about waking up at 5:30, you really need to be doing the math back on what time you need to fall asleep. And that math is individualized for each person. So as you sleep, your brain and your body go through sleep cycles. These sleep cycles are 90 minutes long for most people. And you want to get in 5 sleep cycles per night. So 5 sleep cycles at 90 minutes long makes, 7.5 hours plus some time lying in bed, makes 8 hours for most people. Some people have shorter sleep cycles than others, and that's just the nature of their sleep cycle. And so when you start to actually track your own sleep, you can become really efficient about understanding what the right length of sleep is for you, when you need to get into bed, and how to fall asleep faster to really wake up the next day with your optimal amount of sleep.
I like the fact that you mentioned the idea of going to bed on time, because I feel like most people, that's definitely the biggest challenge. And that's the thing I talk about most of this podcast is that if 5 a.m. is going to happen, 9 p.m. has to be your first priority. And I'm curious in terms of the routine that you might have to get to sleep more effectively. I mean, this device sounds great as well. I'm curious, is there habits that you want to have in the evenings to, I guess, make sleep more likely? Because I know one thing that I tend to get is I get really excited at the end of the day because I have more ideas for tomorrow. Like, are there ways we can quiet our minds effectively so that sleep is more likely?
Absolutely. And that's where meditation comes in. Because remember, meditation taught us the skill of taking our minds out of its wandering ruminations and thinking and putting it on something neutral so that it can shut down and at night go to sleep. So meditation becomes a key practice to shift your mind out of all of its excited thoughts and into something neutral so that you can then go to bed gently. In terms of other practices, hot baths are great, but it's really cool. Your body responds to temperature when you fall asleep. So as you're falling asleep, your body temperature falls. If you take a hot bath right before you go to bed, you end up going into sleep with an elevated body temperature, which could make it harder to fall asleep because your body's missing its cue of the temperature drop. So if you want to take a hot bath, you probably want to do it 2 hours before bed so your body has the peak and then it falls and it'll be nice and cool falling asleep. One little hack is wear a pair of socks, get nice and warm, and then kick them off when you get into bed so that you can cool yourself off quite quickly.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that idea. There's one question I love asking my guests on this show, which has to do with their own daily habits. And I'm curious in terms of someone who obviously is studying these effects of habits and healthy practices. What does an ideal morning look like for you? And what kinds of things are you wanting to include there?
So my personal ideal morning, I wake up just before my kid wakes up, so I get to lie in bed and meditate. I look over at my husband, who's typically still asleep at that time. If he's awake, I'll smile. If he's not, I'll just let him sleep. My kid comes into the bed and we snuggle, and it's the best thing ever. Then I'm up and just loving life. So one of the most important things for me when I get up is to feel that sense of joy and enthusiasm that I get to live this day. You know, this morning there was a snowstorm when I woke up and the car was covered. And it was just like, I get to brush the car off the snow this morning. And it could have been so miserable, but it was so great and so fun because I got to be alive during it. So meditation in the morning, quality time with the family, like that breakfast time routine, playtime, dressing time, all of that is just, I relish it as joyful and fun and like nourishing to me and my family. It's great. If I take the kid to school, I had to drive today because there was a snowstorm, but if it's not, then I like to run with the kid in the stroller. So I get my exercise in there at the same time, and then I'm off on my work day.
So you use the phrase, I get to, and I'm curious, this is a pretty common thing I have with people who, I guess someone like you, who seems to be very happy and like very fulfilled with the work you're doing. How did you get to a point, was this intentional as a practice, or how did you get to a point where you're thinking about your day as I get to do these things?
That's an interesting question. So I have my own podcast called Untangle, and I was interviewing a guest, Aubrey Marcus, and he used the phrase, and I love it. And I think before I had a bit of an internal sense that I get to, but, you know, not all days are as great as other days. And, you know, so I could have so easily said, oh God, the snow is not coming off my car. And the little ice pellets were stuck on there and it was gray out. And I could have very easily gone into a dark place, but I intentionally chose to say, I get to do this. I get to be alive right now. I get to feel the snow. I get to like be a part of this day. I get to remember the delight of playing in the snow when I was a kid. And in those moments, it becomes a choice because you have a choice on where you take your mood. And often your mood will take you before you notice, and that's cool. It happens to all of us. But in every moment, you have a choice to move it up or to move it down. And we just have to keep exercising those choices. Sometimes it can be really hard, and that's okay. But you just keep, you know, bit by bit, chipping it away, moving it back up, and enjoying every piece of snow that you're getting off your car because it's fun. I mean, because it's rewarding, because it's alive.
Right. It totally is. I mean, it sounds like there's a strong relationship here between meditation and this intentional positivity about life. I mean, do you view it that way?
Absolutely. And what meditation teaches you to do is to engage with life in the present moment. So, the act of taking the snow off your car, of enjoying it. That's what meditation teaches you to do, to enjoy your breath, enjoy the moment, enjoy the simple things in life. Because frankly, there's not much more than the simple things in life. Yes, maybe there's some big grand scheme, but on the day-to-day, we get to do these things. We get to feed our kids. We get to spend time with each other, as we're having dinner. We get to do these things. And I'm mentor to a woman who is going through cancer. She's in late stage cancer. She's had multiple protocols. And she keeps talking about how she gets the privilege of life, and she doesn't want to give up the privilege of life. And that resonates with me so deeply. And so, each of these practices that I do, the meditation, the being in the present moment with my kids, the enjoying cleaning the car, all of these things that my meditation practice helps me get more out of life with. It's because I get the privilege of living, and because I want to feel just the joy of being. So really thrilled that I get to live, and that I get to share this with all of you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. It's a great philosophy for life, and it sounds like it's working really well for you. Obviously, I want our listeners to learn more about Muse, about meditation, and more about you. So where can they go?
You can go to choosemuse.com/welcome. So Choose Muse is CHOOSEMUSE.com/welcome. So choosemuse.com/welcome.
Okay, beautiful. I'll have the link for our listeners this week in the show notes page, as well as your podcast as well, which is great to dig into. So Ariel, thanks a lot. This was a lot of fun today.
My pleasure. Have yourself a wonderful day. Enjoy.
And for that action step this week, jumpstart your meditation habits. Meditation is great for you, whether you choose Muse or not. So make meditation your priority. Carve out 10 minutes a day to sit down, close your eyes, and breathe. It really can be that simple. Of course, you can also upgrade and use the Muse Meditation Headband, which you can learn more about at choosemuse.com. And of course, go to jeffsanders.com/373 for all the links discussed this week. That's all I've got for you here on the show. Until next time, you have the power to change your life. And the fun begins bright and early.